purpose of this Solidworks tutorial video is to show you how to make a wine glass. Something a bit like this one that I've created, and then I've also rendered it and added a glass effect to it to make it look more realistic. So, first thing you want to do is open up Solidworks, and then you want to go to File and New, and then you want to do Part, because we're going to be making an individual part. Now, just to remind you of a couple of things, Solidworks uses planes, so it's important that you select the right plane for what you are going to be using. So we're going to be using the front plane because we're actually going to draw a profile of the wine glass from the front. I'll show you how to do that. So the first thing I would do is draw a line down the middle, and then use the Smart Dimension tool, select the line, and then you want to set it to about 155. So that should be the entire size of the glass, including the stem and the base. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to add a line at the top, and this line is going to come out about 45 millimeters there. And then we're going to use the Spline Tool to then add our extra lines that are going to come down the base of our glass, like so. And then once you get to this point here, just double click. So it doesn't matter too much how accurate you are with this, we're just having a little go to see what we can create with these sorts of things. Then you're going to select the straight line tool, draw straight down here, straight line off, and I'm going to line it up so that you can see these little dotted lines that come from this bottom point here to about there, and then just connect it there. So you'll see that it should go blue, which means that all the parts are connected together, so there's no gaps. If you push escape, you can actually select these little star shapes on here, these little asterisks. These allow you to select and move to change the shape of your glass. You could also make the stem a little bit wider or bigger by moving it along and then moving this asterisk here. So you can modify and change your glasses to give them a stronger, thicker stem or a thinner stem. And then we're just going to exit the sketch. Now we've got this profile, and the reason we've only done half of the glass is because we're actually going to do a method called up here, Revolved Boss Base. So if we click that one in Features, you want to select this middle line here. So that is the line that we're using to revolve around. And then it should automatically select the outside of your shape. If it doesn't do that, you can go to Select Contours and you can actually click to select that contour itself. And then just the green tick. Once you've done that, you should end up with something that looks similar to what I have. Doesn't matter if your shape's slightly different because we can edit that afterwards. So if I then went into Edit Sketch again, this is where I can then fine tune and change the shape. And because I'm changing it, you can see that it changes on the other side as a yellow outline. So you can get a better idea of what the glass is going to look like when you finished it. So let's just get this in a little bit more, just to get it to a shape that we're happy with. Again, like I said, this is more just to teach you how to change these shapes. If you move the shape too much, you'd end up with it completely crossing over itself, and then you'll end up with these sorts of errors, which we don't want. So we want to try and keep the shapes so that they are apart from each other. Just be careful as you're moving parts, you'll see that they kind of move around as well. If there are certain parts of your design that you don't want to move, so say if we're happy with the stem here, if you click Fix, so you can select it and fix it, it means that the line goes black, which means it can't move anymore. So as you're moving and editing parts up here, it won't continue to move around. Now at the moment I'm fairly happy with that kind of shape. Now at the moment we can see if we hold down the middle mouse button we can scroll. You can also use the arrow keys to move around your product. If you move to view the top, you can see that actually this is just a solid piece here. There's no bit that's cut out, which isn't very good for a wine glass because you wouldn't actually be able to use it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the front plane again and sketch, and we are going to basically take this outside shape here and we're going to make it offset to offset this outside line. So if we click on offset entities, if you click on the actual revolve and then you click green, you will then get an error. Now the reason you get an error is because you're trying to offset a 3D object. You can't offset 3D objects, you can only offset objects that are actually lines. So if we close that, we're going to do offset entities again. But if you click on the outside of the shape here, so if you put your mouse close to the outside edge here, you'll see that this goes blue. So it means that you can actually select this offset here. Now whereas that one's offsetted to the outside, we want to do offset, zoom in again and just click near the outside edge. Like so I'm selecting that outside edge, and then we do reverse, and that's going to put that line inside the glass. Now we're going to use that because we want to be able to create this as the inside, so we're actually going to extrude cut to get rid of that. So I'm actually going to do about 2mm, so it's quite a thin edge, and then just the green tick. And the reason we're doing this is that we are going to do a revolve cut instead of a revolve boss extrude. So if I put this line down probably to about here, so it lines up with the edge of your glass, and then you want to line up with this bit here. Now the idea is that you're going to create a profile like so you want it to be slightly bigger than the glass. You don't want it to be inside the glass because you want it to use this whole outside area to cut it. And then we can exit the sketch. Now if we go back to our features, you can see that originally we had our revolve. This time we're going to do a revolved cut, and then we're going to select, be able to then go to revolved cut, select this sketch. We're going to make this line, it needs to be this line here, so the line that we're going to revolve around, and then our contours is this outside area here. So you should be able to see that the top of mine is red, and what we're going to do is this is going to revolve around and remove the inside material. Now when you do this, just make sure that you have the thin feature unticked, otherwise you'll get an error. So if I left that ticked, you then get an error because it intersects itself. But if you untick that, it makes it a thicker revolve cut, which means it does the entire area. So if we do that, green tick, you can see that it's cut out the inside of my glass. If I then click on section view, you can then see that I can use these yellow arrows to move through to cut through my glass. If I put it into about the middle, green tick, you can see how it has actually sliced through here to give us that really nice wine glass look. Next thing we're going to do is, if we go up to the Solidworks Add-Ins, you'll need to activate the Photo View 360 just by clicking that, and then the render tools will start appearing. This is where you can then edit appearance, and you'll get a little option over on the right side which allows you to add textures. You can add gloss, you can add thick gloss. There's all different effects that you can add to the glasses, so you can see that I can drag and drop on and it will add the effects for me. You can also change some of the settings over on the left side where you can choose the different colours yourself, so you can give them a slight tinge. You might want to give it a nice turquoise glow. Green tick, and then once you've done that, you can then go through and you can start your final render. So once you've done that, final render, and then it will render the actual screen that it sees. So whatever is in your field of view here, that is what it will view. And you can see that it slowly loads it up, and this can take anywhere from 5 minutes up to hours and hours, 36 hours, 40 hours. It all depends on what kind of techniques you're using, and it also depends on how detailed your design is, and it also depends on what your final render quality is. So it's quite important that if you are doing really big files and really massive files, that you allocate enough time that the computer can be left to complete those renders. Because if you've got a slightly slower computer, then this will take longer. So the more powerful the RAM is of the computer and the graphics card, the faster it will be. So as you can see, it's slowly working its way through, and as it gets to the actual glass, you can see that it's starting to slow down, and this is what takes the time. This is what takes longer. You can also see how much time has elapsed up here, and you can also see how much time is roughly remaining. That's only roughly because the time can go up and down. So it might say a minute, and then the next second it will say 2 minutes, 3, etc. So it does give you a rough idea, but I wouldn't trust it too much, because chances are it will say a minute and then take a lot longer. Now once that render's completed, you can then just do save image and save it into your documents, and then you can add more renders, more views, change the angles, and see what ways you might modify this wine glass to make it look more appealing and more eye-catching to other people.